I don't know if you guys recognize that. That's Vinny's S14. You know, the one you all thought was gonna be finished before the Audi. It's still here, not running. Will the Rover be running before that is? Welcome back to Car Cane Rehab, except new car this time. Got the Audi back on the road. The Audi's not done, but phase one is done. It's running, it's driving. I'm super stoked about that. So stoked, Cal made a shirt about it. The goal this year, to remind everybody, was the whole point of Car Cane Rehab was to try to get as many of my cars and Ashley's cars back on the road as possible. Audi, back on the road. A 911's been on the road. Colt Truckle, still on the road, still for sale. Nova's probably actually only a few days from being on the road. I was thinking to start with that, but then it occurred to me that the winter season's coming up, which is the time when my wife and I go camping the most. We're gonna work on this. So this is our 1995 Discovery 1. It's a manual transmission. We were driving this thing up in Big Sur with our friends. It was a really rad day. Did some water crossing, did some trails, and as we were about to cross over the backside of Big Sur, this thing popped the timing chain, bent all the valves, basically made the motor a boat anchor. Car's been sitting for a year because I've been waiting for the Cummins R2.8 engine, and one is on the way. It's not here yet, but the first thing we're gonna do is strip the engine out, basically get it ready for the swap. Before that, I think I'm gonna wash this thing. It's pretty gross. This is literally how it got here from on the back of a tow truck. Because it's a Land Rover, you guys might see our current license plate, which is oil leak. So I'm gonna try to pressure wash a bunch of the oil off of this thing. Time to get to work on this thing. Last night, I decided I was gonna read up on removing the engine. It's like a 36-step process to pull the motor. Definitely not looking forward to doing that and doing it by myself. I don't know, maybe someone will come help me a little bit later on, but I'm gonna just start tearing it down. Just start by just pulling everything out of the way that's in my way. So like the hood, parts of the cooling system, slowly just start disconnecting all of that. Let's take a look at it. While it says 3.9, this is actually a 4.6 liter. The 4.6 liter came in the later Discos, Range Rover, stuff like that. If you're a fan of 90s hip hop, you certainly know the difference between a 4.0 and a 4.6.
Check this out. What's the difference between a 4.0 and a 4.6? Like 30 to 40 grand. Beat it.
This car came with a 3.9, laters came with a 4.0, but the actual D1 never came with the 4.6. The previous owner swapped in the 4.6. It still uses some of the intake manifold and pieces like that. It's generally the same motor. The problem with the motor though is because it's all aluminum, it definitely has heating issues, or overheating issues I should say. These things are kind of prone to not only head gasket issues, but if it gets bad enough, sometimes they'll drop sleeves and stuff like that. So anyway, I'm gonna stop talking and I'm going to start pulling everything out. So who knew lurking underneath that intake manifold was actually like a rather rad trumpet design. Wasn't expecting that inside of this thing. I've just started clearing everything kind of away from the motor, either to the motor or back from the motor. Pulled out power steering, all of that. Just kind of clearancing as much as I can. Trying to just make sure that this is separate from the car. I still have the AC lines to do, but I don't have the proper tool to evacuate because it actually is charged. The AC worked great in this thing. And while you could just stick a screwdriver in there, we're friendly friendly to the environment here at Hoonigan, so we're not gonna do that. I need to pull off the AC pump. I already took the alternator off. That way I can get the mounting point here. So I get the 2 mounts here, swing it, pick it up. I had to take the manifold off because I have to get to the top of the bell housing through that hole there. And apparently that is absolutely miserable to do. What everyone says to do is to make sure you pull the motor mounts off and then just lower the motor as far as you can to give yourself a little bit more access. Anyway, I'm gonna keep wrapping up now. It's getting late tonight. I'm just gonna try to clear out as much stuff as I can. Hopefully tomorrow I can get a hand and we can get this thing unbolted and out of here. That's enough for tonight. Pretty much everything is disconnected except for the bell housing, which as you can see, I've already got a start on, and the air conditioning. Tomorrow, do the AC, disconnect the bell housing, bring the forklift in, pull the motor out, wait for Cummins R2.8 to show up. That's it. Alrighty, here we are. It's the next day. Bad Daddy Braddy was really nice and evacuated all that AC refrigerant this morning because apparently at some point in Brad's life, he used to do automotive AC work. The man is many mysteries, many mysteries. Anyway, I started actually working on it before I forgot to turn the cameras on, but just removed the rest of the AC lines. Everything should be clear now. I think I've just got one ground line to do. I'm gonna run through and make sure that there's nothing else in the way. And then I'm gonna get underneath, start unbolting some things like the motor mounts. We're gonna lift the engine up a little bit, get the motor mounts off, and then lower the engine so I can get in this really tight access back here to loosen the bell housing bolts. Once that's done, hook it up and maybe try to pull it tonight. The thing is that no one stayed because I guess no one likes me. I'm gonna put my hand in very uncomfortable situations. As you can see, it already looks like I got into a fist fight with this truck. I think it's about to only get worse. Got the exhaust out, at least the front half of it. The downpipes off the headers. Need to clear that out. Unhook the starter, a bunch of other little bolts and different things underneath. Power steering line. I was going to use this, which is our trusty forklift, to lift the motor up, but I'm here by myself and it's actually really hard to control the forklift and jiggle the engine and do all of that. I'm gonna go with the tried and true engine stand. Anyway, back to it. So I've pulled a lot of motors in my life, more than I've put back in, which is part of the carcane problem. But one thing I've learned is whatever you think you have to take out to get the engine to clear, double or triple it. And you may as well just do it now because it's way easier to do it now than when the motor's unhooked and just dangling from a cable. Now I just have to lower this and hopefully it sits back far enough into the engine bay that I can get to the bell housing bolts. See how that works out. Oh, that's way better. Now you can actually access all of that. All right, well, after a few tedious hours under the car, getting extremely filthy, and dealing with bolts that only have like 2 inches of movement to get the ratchet going, not the best design, I think we're ready to try to separate this from the trans and pull it up. So I'm just gonna brace the transmission with a jack and start yanking away. All right, so that's it. Engine's out. Still gotta take the actual transmission out. I'm gonna give this thing a little bit of a steam clean, get it nice and clean to do that. Put it up on the lift outside. We got that 4-post bend pack outside. Clean it so I'm not as dirty next time after working on it. And yeah, and then just wait for the rest of the parts to come in. Hopefully I can keep moving quickly on this with the hopes of still maybe getting this to SEMA, fingers crossed, because it's a couple weeks away. I'm kind of stoked. It came out a lot easier than the internet warned me about. It was definitely difficult to get to some of those bolts, but it was really more tedious than difficult. And I was able to get that out of the car without anyone's help. That like oddly gives me some weird satisfaction. That's it for this episode. Hopefully next episode we get the motor, we can run through that, and then start measuring up everything that we're gonna do, how we're gonna get that Jeep transmission to fit, and also run through some other things that I want to do on here. I'm tired, I feel delirious. I think it's time to go home. I'll give you the best 3 o'clock in the morning wrap I got, which probably isn't that good, but let me bring it in from the bottom. That's a wrap! Oh, look what just showed up.